All right, so if you're even remotely thinking about buying a home, you've probably heard the term LTV thrown around, right? Loan to value. But what happens when a second loan enters the picture? Well, that's where a whole different and honestly a more powerful number comes into play. CLTV, which stands for Combined Loan to Value. Today, we're going to break down exactly what that is and why it's so critical for both lenders and for you, the borrower. Okay, so just imagine this for a second. You find the perfect home, but maybe you're using a down payment assistance program. Or maybe you're doing one of those piggyback loans to try and avoid paying PMI, private mortgage insurance. All of a sudden, you don't just have one mortgage. You've got a primary mortgage and a second loan. So if you're the lender, how in the world do you measure your total risk? That is the exact problem CLTV was designed to solve. So before we jump in and start crunching the numbers, let's take a quick look at the real-world situations, where this isn't just some technical jargon. I mean, this is the critical metric that can literally make or break a deal. At its core, really, CLTV is all about assessing risk. Think about it. A standard loan-to-value, or LTV, it only gives you part of the story. It's just looking at the main mortgage. But the second another loan gets involved, the lender needs the full picture. They absolutely have to know the total amount of debt secured against that home to understand their complete exposure, if things were to go south. And that's exactly why a simple LTV just doesn't cut it in these situations. Okay, let's get to the good stuff. We're going to see how this whole thing adds up. And I promise you, the math is actually super straightforward once you see it broken down. So what is CLTV? It's the ratio of all secured loan balances. And listen, the keyword there is all, to the property's value. The formula couldn't be simpler. You just add up all the loans and then you divide by the property's value. Now, here's a really critical detail, especially if you're studying for an exam. When we talk about value, lenders are always going to use the lesser of the home's appraised value or its purchase price. They always lean on that more conservative number. Don't forget that. Let's make this super real with an example. Let's say a home is valued at $400,000. The buyer gets a first mortgage for $280,000, and then they get a home equity line of credit, that's a HELOC, for another $40,000. Okay, step one, just add the loans together. $280,000 plus $40,000, that gives us $320,000 in total debt. Simple. Step two, we divide that total debt by the home's value. So that's $320,000 divided by $400,000, and that is going to give us our CLTV. Boom, 80%. It's as simple as that. And by doing that quick calculation, the lender now has this one single clear number that represents the total debt load on that property. All right, so now that we know how to calculate it, let's talk about where this number actually pops up. Where does it make an impact? We're going to look at some common financial scenarios where CLTV is a huge deciding factor.
Okay, so you'll see CLTV all the time with down payment assistance programs because those often act like a silent second mortgage. It's also the absolute backbone of those piggyback loans, like the classic 80-10-10 structure, which, is a really common way people try to avoid paying for PMI. And of course, it's the main event for any cash-out refinance or home equity loan. It makes sense, right? The lender has to know the total debt before they're going to hand you more cash. In fact, most lenders will cap a cash-out refi at 80% CLTV, just to make sure there's still a safe equity cushion left in the home.
Okay, hey, listen up. For everyone out there who's gearing up for the SAFE MLO exam, this next part is especially for you. One of the biggest points of confusion is the difference between LTV and CLTV, and you can bet it's going to show up on the test. The difference is actually pretty simple, but man, is it important. LTV, it only ever looks at the first mortgage. That's it, full stop. CLTV, on the other hand, gives you the complete picture. It combines the first mortgage, a second mortgage, a HELOC. It includes every single lien that is secured against that property. Getting these two mixed up is, I'm telling you, one of the easiest ways to get a question wrong on that exam. And hey, here's a pro tip for that test. You're probably not going to get a simple, what is CLTV definition question. No way. Instead, you're going to see it buried inside a scenario-based math problem. So when you see that, you have to remember that golden rule we talked about. Always use the lesser of the appraised value or the purchase price in your calculation. It's a classic trap and they use it all the time. So if we're going to boil this all down to one key takeaway, it's this. LTV is like a snapshot. It just shows you the primary loan. But CLTV, that's the full panoramic view of all the debt tied to a property. It really is the ultimate metric for understanding the total risk involved. And there you have it. Combined loan-to-value totally demystified. Now you know what it is, why it matters, and how to calculate it. So with CLTV now in your toolkit, the real question is, what's the next critical lending ratio that every smart borrower and loan officer really needs to master?